It's my pleasure next to introduce our chairman of the Lake County Board in his rookie season, Aaron Lawler. So a hand of applause for Aaron as he makes his way to the podium. Aaron has done a terrific job. He wasn't on the county board all that long before he became chairman, and I think that speaks for itself. It speaks to his leadership qualities, and we're very proud that he regularly attends many of the chamber events. And he, because he used to work for Ms. Topinka, is going to have the honor of introducing her. So with that, Aaron?
Thank you.
Oops, not going to go very far.
All right. Thank you very much. Comptroller Topinka was sworn in as comptroller in January of 2011, and she became the first female in Illinois history to hold 2 statewide constitutional offices. Prior to being comptroller, Judy was the state treasurer from 1994 to 2007. She was the first woman in the history of Illinois to hold that position and made history again by becoming the first state treasurer to be reelected to 3 consecutive terms. She's a recognized and respected taxpayer watchdog and has earned a reputation for speaking up against the mismanagement of public funds in Springfield. I have to just briefly tell you that having worked for Judy and seeing what she's done with the comptroller's office to really modernize it, her theme is accountability, transparency, and efficiency. And the things that she's done to return money to the taxpayers, prioritize our bills when needed for flood victims or other issues is truly an example for all of us. She's going to speak to us today about programs for individuals and businesses, pension issues, and other issues she's working on in the comptroller's office. So with that, I will introduce Comptroller Topinka when she...
On her way in as
I'll give you a 30-second commercial on an issue I'm sure you're very interested in, which is the issue that Springfield just handed us of taking away our county clerk's authority to administer elections. It's an unfortunate unfunded mandate that will actually create a new county department, an election commission, and remove Willard Heelander's authority to administer elections. We're fighting it vigorously. The legislation was passed out of Springfield, unfortunately, and next week I'll be meeting with a top advisor to the governor, Gary Hanig, to seek an mandatory veto of that. We have done a detailed analysis and found that it will, at the very least, cost us $500,000 to $1 million. So keep you posted on that front. And I hear my good friend.
He's like my son, for heaven's sakes. You know, that's all good. Yes, it's fine. Let me get my goodies here. I certainly want to thank our chairman here, our county board chairman, Aaron Lawler. As you saw, there is a relationship there. I think of him as one of my children, you know, because he is one of our graduates from the controller's office. And we're very proud of our folks when they go out and they do great things. And we kind of think he's a star. So I can't call him Aaron anymore. I have to call him chairman because it's a better fit. You know, it's quite impressive. And I have to tell you, you're very, very lucky to have him here in Lake County. He's like the Energizer Bunny. You will get things done. Anybody who comes out of our office is usually a very practical, common sense, get things done type of a person. And I find that very admirable, and he is very special to us. And I certainly hope he's said some nice things, because that's one of the cool, well, we hope, you know, I don't want him letting any secrets out of the office, but one of the cool things about speaking at events like this is that, you know, you do have all these nice things said about you. In this case, I didn't hear them, but I'm hoping he said nice things. And, you know, it's not even your funeral, and you hear all these nice things. So, you know, it's really good. And certainly I want to thank your board chairman, Don Peterson, to Ray, of course, for all his help, the rest of your crew for putting this event together. So I want you to know that I really appreciate your work and the fact that you hold up the family colors here for small business, for all business, because we need all the help we can get in this state for business in general. So individually with you and then your businesses and collectively as organizations, it's a great help to us because sometimes we have to pressure the legislature. It's just a tough time to have a business in Illinois right now, be it to have a business, to consider starting a business, to maintain a business, because you know you have to keep moving and networking and trade shows and other events just to give your folks a leg up. And you haven't even stopped there, because you've worked tirelessly to, I think, influence policy, to help keep taxes low, to fight against all the short-sighted things that government does to kill business and limit growth and put all sorts of hurdles in your path. When you hear that magic word, I'm from the government, I'm here to help you, I assume you go into shock. And as well you should. So I do applaud your work. Now, I hate to be a downer, especially after you've had this wonderful lunch. You've heard all these great things from Aaron and stuff. But I've been told that being the chief fiscal officer for the state of Illinois is like being a skunk at the picnic, because I will tell you what's going on, and it does disturb the picnics. Let me tell you in advance, it will be a little disturbing. Now, I'm sure many of you keep up a lot with what's going on in the state, but I do have to tell you, the sad truth is that our finances are such a mess, and not getting any better. Now, this week, of course, we're going to see another special session, so we're going to see if anything can come out of it. And frankly, I'm not real sure. I certainly wouldn't take any bets on it. But I will tell you, today we have more than 74,537 unpaid bills at our office, okay? 74,537. So when you're paying your bills this month for your utilities and the phone company and the electricity and garbage collection, just think about the bills we are attempting to pay. And now that totals $3.8 billion with a B dollars that we owe, okay? And when you throw in everything that's piling up in state agencies, the backlog now reaches $5.8 billion. And believe it or not, that's progress. We're kind of thrilled about that $5.8 billion. Only in Illinois could we feel that good about a backlog of $5.8 billion. We just came out of a tax season that brought in a little extra money, $1.3 billion. So we had just a little more money to play with, and we used those dollars to pay down bills. It was almost like a laundering operation. It came in and it went out. And we tried to pay as many of those bills as we could. So now our backlog is only $5.8 billion. Not the $7 or $8 or $9 million that we were behind a few months ago. Now, at the same time, I tell you this, our pension situation is literally the worst in the nation. We used to take great pride in the fact that we weren't last, that California was last, but California fixed its problem with some austerity and going out there and really doing what had to get done, what Illinois should be doing. They did it, so now we are dutifully last. Now we owe around $97 billion. That's how much we're in the red, $97 billion. Now that's almost, if you looked at that, and you look at some of the budgets of a number of countries in the world, our debt is as large as some of the budgets of countries of the world. And it's growing by $17 million a day. So as we sit here today, we're going to tag on another $17 million. Okay, let me just put this down here. And that always makes me nervous because, if nothing gets done with the legislature coming in for a special session, that's going to be another $50,000 or thereabouts just to call them there so they can look at each other, hit their I'm here button and their I'm going home button. So I'm hoping that we do get something out of that. Now, on top of all this, or I should say because of it all, the bond rating agencies that are out there, 3 of them, okay, we got hit twice last month. Twice we were downgraded last month. That joins the other 12 downgrades that we've gotten in the last 4 years. So that's got to be some kind of a record. We are very, very close for Illinois to be turned into junk bonds, which is a really embarrassing situation for a state that has so many things going for it, so many assets, so much potential, and we could be junk bonds? So if things don't get done, we're pushing in that direction. It gives us the worst credit scores in the nation. And that, of course, makes everything more expensive for the state of Illinois because they cost us more. Every time our credit takes a hit, it ensures that taxpayers will have to shell out more in payments, interest payments, when the state borrows for roads and bridges and other public works projects. Now, you know, these interest payments, I mean, when we think of interest, we think of normal interest, 4% thereabout. But when you're talking billions of dollars in some of these projects, interest payments run in the multi-millions of dollars. And that just goes right down the black hole. And I gotta tell you, that's the first thing I have to pay by law when they are due. So that takes money right off the top of any monies that we might have out there for education, for hospitals, for health care, for anything. It is a very expensive proposition. And now these bond agencies have threatened to downgrade us again if we don't address the mess. So when you look at all these realities, you start to realize why businesses might have second thoughts on should they come to Illinois? Should they stay in Illinois? Should they invest in their business? Should they hire more people? Should they do what needs to get done to have a thriving economy here? And so, you know, who in their right mind would want to invest their time and their money and their future in a state that can't pay its bills? And when you're surrounded by very successful states like Indiana and Wisconsin, Kentucky, in Iowa, we just drive folks across the borders because, frankly, you can get the Illinois market without having to do business in Illinois, and that's a constant threat. So why would small business owners want to set up shop or invest in any expansion when they have no idea if that 67% tax increase that was supposed to be temporary, remember it's a temporary tax increase, is that going to hold? Is it going to be temporary? Have we ever had a temporary tax increase that was temporary? But I will say we had one, and to his credit, Jim Edgar, when he was governor, actually ran on the fact that he was going to make it permanent. I'm just assuming that unless they come up with some kind of a grand scheme here, that temporary tax is going to become permanent because they're using it as part of the budget as if it were, quote, real money, state of Illinois money, not borrowed money. And they've been, you know, shoveling it right into the budgetary process. So you take that out and it creates a huge, huge gaping hole in a budget that's already messy. So where do we go from here? Okay, first and foremost, we have to address the two big eaters, the big monsters that eat the state budget, which are pensions and Medicaid. Right now, those two items are about 22% of the budget and climbing. And if it's allowed to just stay the way it is, ultimately there just won't be any money for anything else. It will all go into Medicaid and pensions. So the governor's called for this special session in Springfield to address pension reform. There are two competing ideas, one coming from Michael Madigan, the Speaker of the House, who, you know, has a great deal of control over the state of Illinois, and also the President of the Senate, John Cullerton. And, you know, that we have veto-proof majorities on the part of the Democratic Party in both chambers, and these two Democratic leaders are allegedly friends. I guess President Cullerton was even a godfather to one of Mike Madigan's children and so on. But they're not getting along real well these days. And these two potential bills have gone back and forth, and they've either not been called or they've been gutted, and bad things have happened. So when you've got two competing problems here, you know what got done? Nothing. And we went back to, you know, life as usual, $17 million a day dropping, nothing getting done. So now we've got this special session. I don't know that there's any kind of a game plan out there that these folks can vote on. So whether or not this will be successful, I'm not holding my breath. Now, it's very, very frustrating, incredibly frustrating to see this drag on any longer because it should have been done years ago. This is not an overnight problem. It has gone on for 30, 40 years where one thing that has not gotten done is the fact that all sorts of Mickey Mousing with with pension ideas have come up, making life a little easier for some. But by and large, keep in mind the average state employee does not make that much money. And state employees have been paying into the system. They have done their part. They follow the rules. They did what they were supposed to do. They're counting on their pensions to retire on. And frankly, they have to have something to retire on, or are we going to just drive people onto public aid? Because one way or another, we're going to pay. I always say it's like Mr. Goodrich. You either pay now or you pay later. But if you usually pay up front, it's a little cheaper than if you wind up later with all the nasty things that go with that. But if we don't have the parties come together for some kind of a compromise that is, quote, constitutional, our state simply will wind up in court for a very, very long, long time. Court battles, lots of money dropping down, lawyers being happy, and so on. We have a very unique situation in Illinois in that our pension and Medicaid situation is not just state law, it is constitutional law. It's actually built into our Constitution, our state Constitution of 1970, which says thou shalt not diminish anything that involves these contractual relationships with employees. And it's written there. And so as a result, anything that comes out of the legislature on this front has to be constitutional. And therein lies the rub. Whether or not either the Madigan or the Cullerton proposals can pass constitutional muster is anybody's guess. It would seem to me, by not being a lawyer, that the Cullerton proposal is a little bit closer to being constitutional than the Madigan proposal, but we're going to see where that goes. One way or another, I do believe anything that we come up with will go to court. The question is, how long is this going to go on? The second thing we have to get back on track is keeping our spending flat. Now, I think you all can understand that. I mean, what's not to understand? If you don't have money, you don't spend money you don't have. I think that's a fairly simple theorem. It's really hard to get across down in Springfield. Frankly, it's a little hard to get across in Congress as well. I don't know what happens to people when they get into government, but somehow their brains get twisted up and they somehow think that everybody's money is their money. It's not their money. It's your money. It's my money. And I personally take that pretty seriously. So, to get us back on track, I have said keep the budget flat. Don't create programs now when you can't pay for other programs that you've already got there. You can't pay your bills. Don't add to the spending. So, as I mentioned, we took in $1.3 billion more in tax revenue than was expected this spring as residents and businesses made moves to take advantage of the 2012 federal tax rates. So, now the legislature thinks we have $1.3 billion more floating around out there. Now, I've told the folks in Springfield, everywhere I could go, individually and collectively, that as soon as that money comes in, out it goes to pay bills. It's not sitting around in money bags in my office. So I've told the General Assembly, don't appropriate new dollars, let me pay off the debt. Now, it was eye-opening to say the least, because I gave these reality checks, told them we're going to pay down bills, no extra dollars lying around, that we were the only state in the nation where $5.8 billion in unpaid bills was progress, and that didn't stop the General Assembly from hiking up the state budget by about $2 billion. To a total of $35.4 billion. Now, I got to tell you, I can't back up that $2 billion. We don't have the money to do that. That money is gone and going on a continual basis to pay down bills. It's not lying around for the pleasure of the legislature to play with. Now, a lot of the increase is in this budget is for education and human services. And I think that's a nice thing. Feels good, it's in the right place, if it existed. But if the money's not there to back it up, all we're doing is just digging that hole deeper. And the first rule of getting out of a hole is to stop digging. They're still digging. Now, what is really galling to me is that the General Assembly included $500 million worth of earmarks into that budget as well. These are all these little personal things that make a legislator happy, and they're going to be running for election, and they could get a headline that says they did this, that, and the next thing. Earmarks. This is not the time for earmarks. Again, we don't have the money. We can't afford the services we're providing. So how do we justify funding special projects? It just doesn't make any sense. And really, that's got me pretty darn mad. Now, as a state, we need to operate with a unified understanding that even if revenue increases, we cannot afford to bump up spending, not until we play catch up. And finally, we've got to get government off the back of our businesses so that businesses can grow, be unencumbered, be able to hire people, give people jobs, get money flowing again, get the economy moving. The tougher we make it for businesses, the more that belly up or walk away or go outside of the state, or worse yet, go offshore, the worse it is. So listen, from its central location and skilled workforce and its position as a transportation hub for the nation, we should be a destination for business, and we keep letting government get in the way. And really and truly, and I appreciate what you all do, because I know you contact your legislators. They are your voice. You've just got to stay on them and on them and on them. Because having come from the legislature, I will tell you, when you hear from your voters, if I got 5 letters on any one issue, I thought it was hot stuff. So you've got to bombard them, and especially in their off times when you can talk to them in a manner that's not all encumbered with people coming and going and a legislative session going on. When you have their attention. So when they come back from this special session, that's the time to start talking to them, okay? And getting to them and trying to get them on board. And I must admit, I'm not particularly happy with how redistricting went, because very often I would question how representation then actually works out, especially when you have so much domination by the city of Chicago into these districts where we become so Chicago-centric we forget that there's the rest of the state. Okay, now, if we can do all that, can you imagine? We might even catch up on our bills, which I would be just thrilled about, because this job is really a 7-7 job, and there's a lot of magic involved, because I have to pull rabbits out of hats and rob Peter to pay Paul, and then I'm back to Peter, and I'm plugging holes, and as people call and companies call and non-for-profits call, and they don't have enough money, and they're going to belly up on us, trying to save them. I assure you, this is not just going to happen. We have to change the culture in Springfield through organizations like yours standing up and demanding a different approach. The legislature and the governor and all of us cannot just go on cruise control. Some really hard-nosed activity has to take place here, and some decisions have to be made. It's called leadership, and right now we're not getting a great deal of it. I think it means raising awareness through meetings like this, continuing to share information, reaching out to your representatives, developing a network so that you are a mighty force. Individually, you're important. Collectively, you're a terror, and you can get things done. So, as one who's made a career of nagging until I get answers, and I am a nag. I mean, it's amazing how many things I've been able to do legislatively just by nagging the dickens out of people till finally they give me what I want just to shut me up. And it works. It works. So, I just tell you that persistence does pay off. So stay at it. Don't get discouraged. I think the fact is we can bring change to this state. It's just going to take some work. Now, if you really also want to kind of get into the arena, there's nothing that says you can't run for public office. Get business people to run for public office. A lot of folks that are in the legislature have never had to make a payroll. They don't necessarily understand what you're going through. And so I know that's how I got into politics. I just got sick of crud and corruption, and I ran. Said, I can't take it anymore. That old thing that's on network news, I just can't take it anymore. Well, that was my story. So any of you can do this as well. And I would welcome you to the arena because it's a fun place. A little bit of a blood sport, but I noticed the bull out there, so I guess you're used to it. On that note, I do have to catch a plane, and I thank you oh, well, looky here. How are you?
I'm not Aaron. I took notes, Judy, and here's what I learned, because we can always depend on her to be a straight shooter. So the number one thing I learned is that Aaron's her favorite. We're all down with that, right? Surprise, surprise, Madigan and Cullerton don't get along, and she has money bags laying around all over her office. But we do thank you very much for being here, and just to let you know, yeah, round of applause.
One thing I have to do, though, when you wear a haircut like that, my son's in the Army, so I stay in practice by doing this, eh? There you go.
Lucky I didn't use the hair gel today, you know?
Okay.
But thank you very much, Controller. We really, really do appreciate it.